Jeffrey Lyons, syndicated movie critic on CBS Radio, longtime friend of the show. Nice enough to join us now. Jeffrey, it's Michael, Don, and Peter. How you doing?
How are you? You know, everything I know about hockey I learned from Don McGregor.
How about that?
That's not my sport, and everything I learn, I'm almost conversant in hockey, so I admired him, and I got to take his opinions as gospel.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, so you've been doing this forever, Jeffrey. That last moment, what were you thinking? Have you ever seen anything close to that?
Well, there have been other screw-ups. For example, one year, Charlton Heston was supposed to host the Oscars. And, Michael, when you get to host the Oscars, please sleep there the night before. Don't get a flat tire on the 405, all right? So they called on that guy, that noted after-dinner ad-libber, that successor to Georgie Gesso as the Toastmaster General of the United States, Clint Eastwood.
Wow.
To read from the prompter. So there's Clint Eastwood reading what it was like to play Moses, and then the difficulty in driving a chariot, and then suddenly Heston strides onto the stage, doesn't even acknowledge Clint Eastwood. Eastwood slinks off in fury, and they roll the prompter back and start again.
Oh, my goodness.
So that, to me, is a lot worse. And then there was the streaker, of course. And who would ever forget David Niven complimenting the streaker and showing the world his shortcomings?
Right, exactly.
So,
great ad-lib.
But my first thought was to my son, Ben, who, as you know Ben, Michael, he's an ESPN LA anchor, and he's also the host of the ABC.com broadcast on the Internet.
I saw the look on his face. It was priceless.
Oh, he was like 2 feet away, and it's a shock. But you can't have two cards, and when you have stars who are, getting on in years, and they're in nerve, they still got to be a little. I know Warren. I was with Warren Beatty a few weeks ago at a film festival, and his eyesight is fine, and he even hesitated.
Right.
It was the wrong card, and that's inexcusable. That's the problem when you have two sets of cards. They had two sets of cards, and somebody screwed up. And, of course, I was thinking of Steve Harvey. And it was an amazing – but the thing is, at the thank you cam afterwards, which is right where Ben was, the winners were very gracious, and the La La people were very gracious, too. They got their awards, and this will help a smaller independent film, which certainly can use that award a lot more than La La Land.
This is just popping into my head right now, but – I'm reading now that the ratings went down as the night went on, particularly among young viewers. Any chance, super conspiracy theory, that this was done to have a spicy moment at the end? Because I heard they were going to let people let their speeches run as long as they wanted to see if they'd get anything controversial. Nothing really controversial happened last night.
There's too much money involved. An Oscar for an actor, or an Oscar for a production company, or for any kind of technical person, or an Oscar for a movie can mean, especially a movie, can mean millions of dollars at the box office in its last first theater run. I don't think so at all. But it's an inexcusable offense to do that, and there's got to be a better system. The Oscars have learned from the Tony Awards. One time I think it was William Holden who was the last one accepting the Oscar for Stalag 17 in the early days of televised Oscars, and they ended the show, and the next year they started, and Holden got on at the beginning of the show and said, as I was saying, well, those days are over. I've been to 3 of them, and when they know you're from New York and you want to sit in, they know you're a critic, and you want to sit in the auditorium, not in the press room, they give you a seat. I wouldn't say it was high up, but my usher was a Sherpa guide, and I was the only guy without a harp up there. It's much more fun to sit home and heckle, but it's an ordeal, and it'll never happen again, but they have to have one set of cards so nothing like that can happen. And they should get away with do away with the envelopes. For goodness sake, it takes forever. But I thought Jimmy Kimmel was excellent.
He was.
He was funny, and getting the real tourist off the bus, it lasted a little too long. Denzel Washington did not look happy that he lost. And
it looked like he was crying, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think he did. By the way, do you think, I went to the screening and he was there and I didn't ask him. I should have. I think that may have been based on Josh Gibson, that character, who played for the Pittsburgh Crawfords, one of the greatest, possibly the greatest catcher of all time, right? You'd agree, Michael, right? And anyway, I think he deserved it, but he didn't look happy at all.
I will tell you this, Jeffrey, and you probably know the story. Everybody's saying, well, he got rooked out of the Malcolm X Academy Award. But then he got his other Academy Award as a supporting actor.
Yeah, for Glory.
And he should not have won that year. My uncle should have won. They gave him the Glory one because he should have gotten the Malcolm X one.
You mean Danny?
Yeah, he should have
My
wanted
buddy
to do the
Danny
right
Aiello,
thing.
who called himself the next Vic Power at first base.
He was a pretty good baseball player.
I still play in the league that he and I founded every Tuesday starting in April. Be there. Danny's one of my dearest old friends. I love Danny. Yeah, I think so. And they do that sometimes. You know, Rod Steiger did not get an Oscar for The Pawnbroker, so the next year they gave it to him, so they say, for In the Heat of the Night. And John Wayne, they gave him a hurry-up Oscar. And Henry Fonda got an Oscar for On Golden Pond, certainly not his best performance. They do that sometimes, or at least they used to do that. The voters are getting much younger now, so the whole dynamic is different. Look, you know, in the Hall of Fame voting, there's often no justice. You guys should vote, and you don't. It's only the writers, some of whom haven't been to a game in years. Both those groups of voters need to be revised.